Matchup number 3 of the day coming to you. It's Aqualix taking on Unemployment, maybe better known as Carnage B and Companies. All these names mixing me up, but we'll start on the side of Aqualix. Cookies. I mean, both teams, more so Aqualix, not coming out of the gate the way they wanted to.
Aqualix has 2 losses. However, in both of those losses, they looked pretty damn good. I gotta say, I like how they're playing more maps. They're playing theme park. They had teased us. They teased us of that last stage, but they're for real expanding their map pool, for real, no cap. And Beastly, we love Beastly around here. The Gaming game coming up later. We're gonna talk more about that dynamic, but Gaming just kind of gave him away, and Aqualix will gladly take him. Beastly, of course, they didn't win that clutch against CTK last week, but Beastly almost had a huge clutch moment, 2 versus 2, and that could have been the points for Aqualix to put them on the board, but naturally they didn't get it. But I think the big story here is the 3 fraggers, Psychosis, Afer, and Tra. That's an elite trio. I think those guys are playing exceptionally. Gasher's playing his best Siege, arguably, ever. And, Aqualix could very well be a dark horse going through the rest of this stage. But, of course, it's Aqualix. They love to troll. Historically, this team, the minute I say stuff like this, oh my God, dark horse. Oh my God, they just come out and they're the most Mickey Mouse team ever. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reverse curse and say that Aqualix actually stinks, guys. And you should absolutely not believe in this team.
Absolutely.
That means they'll totally be good now, right?
Believe in Cookies. Terrible team. They're going nowhere. Awful. No direction. Nothing like that. Don't expect much from them. Those 7-5 losses, they looked terrible. There's no reason to expect they'll turn things around. The team that will turn things around, though, is Unemployment. They are 1-1 at the moment. There's positives, but there's also some negatives.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big positives for this team is that there's not a single player on the roster who's complaining about his IGL mid-game on Twitter. Oh. That's huge. Absolutely massive. As well as the impact that Hat has had coming in on this team, led by the man down there at the bottom, Carnage B, the IGL of this roster. The core. He used to be the titular man that we would say. The team was named after him. They love him. Now they just kind of name themselves after their employment status, which is unemployed, because a lot of them, they just don't have jobs. They sit here and play Siege, but they've been playing really well. And probably the biggest storyline with this roster has been that last stage we complained a lot that Karn's team, Karn & Co., they played like it was 3 metas ago. They were playing utility meta. They were playing not explosive enough. They weren't playing aggressive enough. They were slow. They were lethargic, and it wasn't fun to watch, and it wasn't fun for them to play because they kept losing. But now they've made strides towards the new direction, towards the new wave. They're adopting the new meta, and it's been really fun to watch.
Speaking of fun to watch, the one thing that I've liked so far, Cookies, with Aqualix, is this is a team that once bringing in Beastly, you now have less of a dice roll, I would say, going into every matchup, which is what kind of felt like last year and this previous stage with Gasher and the way he led the team, which was super aggressive. Now at points, it actually seems like, they've got a nice balance going between the two.
And by balance, you mean they're just normal?
Yeah, something like that.
You would be moderately correct, okay? Because at least in their games thus far, TTK. Why can't I speak? TTK game last week in mind when I'm talking here. Their Instagram was incredible, right? They were let's just say Packer did not have a good time. Okay, Packer was getting farmed, he was getting smoked. And the thing is, a lot of it is just how much better this team has gotten. I really like how Tra's playing like knock, walking around, doing whatever, getting. They opened most of their rounds like 5v3 on attack. It's like, now past that, you open 5v3 and then you find a way to, not drone out people in the hallway, and then they end up getting kills and making rounds back. There's a little bit of trolling after the initial fragging, but their initial early round has gotten a lot better between stages. And I gotta say, I like the blitz picks. I like stuff like that coming out of Aqualix. They're inspiring. Like I said earlier, they're inspiring, but they also have a tendency to troll.
Yeah, they do. They troll a lot. They troll so incredibly much, but so does Karn & Co. they troll a lot too, because right now there's been so many like roster moves here and there, but not the kind that happen in between stages. It's kind of the, scratch your head. Where's Mikey? He's on vacation. They still aren't at their full 5. And then in a couple of weeks, like CZ's out of town and Karn's out of town. We don't know which roster is going to get fielded on a week-to-week basis, and it's so incredibly scary. And CJ, one of the things that you talked about for Aqualix was their elite trio, that early round presence that we've seen so well. It's going to be up to Hat and CZ. Do you think that they can really try to match it?
Depends which CZ shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we get CCS easy, we might have ourselves a 7-7 game today, and it's going to be amazing. Or Karn's team will just come out and lay an egg. And you know,
wait, we're gonna have a 7-7 game. It's just gonna end at 7-7. That's it.
Yeah, the teams they're gonna put down their weapons and shake hands and be like, you know what, we're all winners here.
Good, well played, played. We're all gentlemen here.
It's a dice roll. I don't know. You're right. It highly does depend on those two, because outside of those two, there's no consistency you can really rely on, right? I mean, Karn's old, but other than that, the roster's been different 2 weeks in a row now, right? So we don't know outside of those two.
I feel that it's really interesting. There's a lot of comparables between these two teams, and it's interesting that they're facing off right now.
Mm-hmm.
CJ, do they have any comparables as far as what maps they like to go to? Is there anything you've noticed? No?
Have you noticed anything that they like to play? These two? Any overlap in map pool?
I mean, unemployment, they like the club organs, and they'll probably be banning out the new maps. That could be club and Oregon immediately down by Aqualix. Somebody did their homework. And now 2 maps in a row of new maps for unemployment. That makes sense. Would have been interesting for me to see an Aqualix pick of Cafe, considering I think they do have slightly more firepower, and that could help kind of with that map that has been historically a ban for all iterations of Karn teams.
Yeah,
the Chalet bounce back. That is kind of a targeted ban towards Aqualix. They've already shown an efficiency towards that map and actually put up a pretty dang close fight that was closer than the score against Luminosity.
That's actually really funny how history has changed, man. Used to be unemployment and Karn & Co., whatever you want to call them. They started banning Cafe because of how badly Gasher slammed them one good time.
Yeah, the 7-0 forever ago.
So it's funny how that is just that narrative is switched now, which just goes to show you that's like kind of the thing. Aqualix plays a lot of different maps now, but not really, because Villa is a map that we've seen 1,000 times, and you know Karn is dorky. Karn's probably watched the VOD 1,000 times over, and there's multiple VODs of Aqualix Villa. Of course, it's a different Aqualix, but it's the same brain. Or is it?
It's the same right brain. The left brain is new. The left brain is new.
This? See, this is where it gets funny, right?
And then the frontal lobe
with
chill coming in. You got 3 different parts of the brain all just trying in and move pieces around.
Maybe it just becomes one big brain. But it's prediction time. Connor, I want you to take a prediction one step further. Which of these two teams would you say, let's assume both have a good chance at winning here, which obviously we think they do. It's kind of split down the middle. If one of these teams were to win, which do you think is the better opportunity to use this as kind of like the jumping point to turn around their stage?
I think it definitely is Aqualix. I think this is a 7-4 Aqualix victory. I'm going to be that confident and take it that step forward because, like CJ was saying earlier, I think that this is a dark horse roster that is taking strides in the correct direction. But both these teams have a very similar narrative that, we've talked so much about how incorrect their full philosophy towards the game is. The Lake Asher system, oh my gosh, and Lake Karn is 5 million years behind the game. And now both of them are taking strides, and Gasher system is kind of no more. It's the Gashly system with him and Beastly, and it's looking a lot better. And Karn is welcome to the new age moment. And both these teams coming in and looking like they're going to be proper teams that are going to be competitors. It's almost which team has made the correct strides faster. And I think right now Aqualix is just maybe a step and a half ahead.
One of the things that we talked about before the last matchup, Cookies, was, roster changes and which teams we thought benefited the most. Between these two teams, I mean, your pick, I don't know if your pick is it actually unemployment, or are you pulling this whole you want Aqualix to win, so you voted for unemployment? Either way, which team do you think has improved most with their
You know
roster
me.
changes?
You know me too well. That's exactly what I was doing. Because I want to like Aqualix. I swear to you. And over the past year, each stage they've made a move that I've liked in some way. I love the Beastly pickup.
Yeah,
I love
that's huge.
I love Traquan. Even though you complained about Gasher on Twitter, you know what? Gasher, we say Gasher system for a reason, because Gasher has probably upset a lot of people in his system. Okay, so you know what? You can vent and get angry about it, but you know what? I like this team. Like I said, I love how their entries are looking on attack, and I love the control they should have with Beastly. They just need to kind of get it together at some points in rounds. Because I think against CTK on Theme Park, they could have had a 5-1 attack half if they just get it together. They could do that. So that's the type of potential we're looking at with Aqualix, but I'm still not going to vote for him, though, for reasons previously
CJ,
discussed.
Unfortunately, even though our images look like we're having a conversation, we will be separated in our prediction percentage now. No longer will we be nice.
Oh, someone's
nice
got to go.
Somebody's going up
The
and
two
one's
nice
going
guys.
down.
Yeah. Who do you think,
life, bro.
Connor, seeing them so far, 2 games, what have you liked, or even maybe possibly not liked about this combination of Beastly and Gasher? It's been noticeable, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's been some rounds that the kind of direction has been like, oh yes, we want to go fast, but some people are trying to like sit back, and there's been a disconnect. But overall, that's happened a lot less frequently than I would have expected when you have 2 completely polar opposite IGLs. It is approaching that yin and yang circle where they're going to be in perfect balance. They're getting so close to it, and I think maybe one more week and they will hit it.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much longer. This is why, I mean, I was the one that pitched the question, but I got to say, I really do think that Aqualix, if they can, get it to click soon, I think that the ceiling is very high for them and the potential that they can reach. What we're going to do now is we're going to throw it to the casters. Let's get their take on this matchup and how they think that these 2 teams, pair up against each other, because as I said, the similarities are there. You can draw conclusions between these 2 teams. They're going to be going to Villa. It is unemployment taking on Aqualix.
I'm of a similar mindset to CJ, except instead of not predicting Aqualix, I am still predicting Aqualix. I have rooted for this team over the past... I would say rooted. I have predicted this team many times over the past year. Like CJ also said, they continuously always seem to let us down. But John, as he also said, even though they've both been 7-5 losses, Aqualix as a whole, but especially Gasher, have actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, especially going up against Luminosity, that was kind of his pop-off game, and like we have all said, although they lost that match, they made it very close. And now we're going to basically Gasher's world. We are going to Villa. This is a map that Aqualix really favored in Stage 1. I could imagine despite their roster changes, they still enjoyed going this map, and they're probably not that uncomfortable heading here in this best of 1, but it was also brought up on the desk that unemployment, they like to do their homework. They probably have a couple of ideas as to what they want to try to do to counteract Aqualix on this map. And honestly, if they start out with a pretty good roam game, if they just let Hat and CZ kind of off the leash and just let them do their own thing, they could probably find a lot of success in the early round, despite how well Aqualix tend to be at finding those entries.
That'd certainly be a good counter to some of the plays that Aqualix like to go for. CJ also brought up Tra playing that Nook a lot. Of course, that is a pick we've seen a lot more recently over the past few months or so, just teams bringing that Nook, going for that lurk, and trying to find a pick early on, or even in the mid to the late round, just trying to catch the defense off guard. If you let Hat and CZ on the roam and just kind of play how they want to, guide their own style of play instead of being stuck in a rigid system, finding players like Tra and being able to capitalize off of those openings if AQ are sticking to the game plan or sticking to a similar game plan like we saw in week 1, that could be an easy way to get quite a few defensive rounds or even some advantages in defensive rounds, even if they don't end up winning them.
I mean, a perfect example was probably Playday 1 when we had unemployment go up against TTK, or now Reality TV. They would have CZ just kind of walk into small tower almost every round and maybe get droned out a little bit here and there, and then he would just find a kill. Simple as that. That's instant map control. That's some of the roam game gone. And the roam game can be very impactful on a map like Villa. You always tend to mention on that basement floor, you kind of have that whole highway to walk around as that roam game. So it can be very forgiving. So trying to deal with that early on could be a really big step in the right direction. I believe we have unemployment on the defensive side first. So again, it might come down to more or less just Had and Stacey doing their own thing from the get-go. And then that second half discussion where they have to go and, be a little more vital on that info game and be a little bit more methodical. That could come into play. But, as of right now, it's still waiting on a couple players.
Yep, specifically just one player from Aqualix, and then we can get into the game. Don't believe have we casted Villa this stage? I know pretty sure it's been played, but I don't think we casted it yet. I don't know why. All I remember is like theme park and a lot of it for some reason. That wasn't all of the maps we casted, but like all of the moments I can remember specifically from last weekend are all like theme park in my head.
Yeah.
So kind of a little bit disproportionate, but I know I've not casted Villa in a little bit or since last weekend, so I'm excited to see what they can do, especially because if AQ are able to get that somewhat control down below, send Trot in as the Nook, we can see a lot of nades from below. I literally remember this morning, saw a tweet from Gunnar as I woke up complaining about those depth charges from below, so he's obviously not playing today, but I'm sure if Aqualix or Unemployment for that matter, able to establish some of that control from below, plenty of things that Gunnar would be complaining about, or anybody in this lobby can complain about, will happen. But we do have Beastly in the lobby, so hopefully once we get all of the R's in chat, we can see who will come out the winner on Villa between AQ and Unemployment.
Yeah, I think in terms of what you mentioned earlier about map selection, I think we've casted Theme Park 3 times in a row. It's been a very favored map, and not so much Villa, although it has its deep roots in competition altogether. Still waiting on a couple of hours, but yeah, at least we have that information that everyone's in here, so we're only going to wait a few extra seconds. In terms of bans, I can imagine just, basic stuff. It's not too early, or not too late, into the stage, and at least these two teams haven't played Villa, if at all, in this stage so far, although, again, Aqualix, they'd love to go to this map during stage 1, so I couldn't imagine too much being thrown out there. It would be funny if we maybe see a Nook ban potentially by Unemployment because they don't play her a lot, although across the pond, Aqualix, they frequent her quite heavily, especially in the pocket of Trot, even if he's not the biggest fan of being on that role.
It's a pretty good role, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
If I
Nook's
just,
great.
If my job was just, hey, play Nook and try to get a kill, I'd be happy. I mean, I suck at the game, at least mechanically, so that wouldn't be great. Probably still lose the fight, someone would 180 flick me, but I'd at least be happy. You get some freedom on that role. And what do you know?
I called it.
There you go. Nook banned out, so Tra will not have to play the role that he dislikes. But more importantly, Unemployment will not have to worry about that Nook crouch walking around the map. Valkyrie also taken off the board, not as a response, but in addition to Unemployment's first attacking ban. Unsurprising, Valkyrie, one of the most common operators banned on Villa. The follow-up, maybe we'll see that Azami banned out as well, just because of how powerful she is, but maybe the Wamai taken off the board as well to maximize the impact of operators like Flores that Unemployment now can use to their maximum power on their attacks.
Might see more of that roam style of play. I could definitely imagine a lot of mute again because Flores being a viable option here and not having to worry about all that much utility spam. All depends on what both teams are feeling. Seems like Aviator and Games is on the drawing board for round number 1 for Aqualix, and their lineup definitely screams like they want to extend at least to a certain extent. They've got the smoke, which you can put a shield on top of main. You also have the Azami and the Hand Psychosis, which again, those inflatable shields, as I tend to call them, can just be procced up at any given moment if you want to re-hold a position of the map for a little while longer, and also just allows for more flexibility across the board for all of your players, really. Just gives you more advantageous positions to hold and maybe slow down Unemployment for a little while longer.
I know Psychosis in particular is very happy about Azami's release, just because I know Psychosis. I've been in Discord calls with Psychosis, and the amount of times where I've come in and he's just been alone testing and trying to find angles, or in this case, Kiba barrier placements, it's been a lot. So I imagine once this operator came out, he was probably claimed dibs on Azami fairly quickly. And as a result, we already see him place a Kiba barrier on that maps table to try and hold inside a top red or hold into the entrance, trophy, and statuary. The teams want to, or just give the attack something to burn later on. Also have a cap can on the board from Gasher. Likely have a lot of those traps placed and those EDDs placed further out in a master bedroom. But he also just took almost all of his HP and damage, and I really can't say how. Probably tried to spawn peek.
I would assume so. We saw Gasher stacked up, I believe, across the map, maybe closer towards the master side rather than AV, but at least he's alive. There's that one benefit. Yeah, he's actually all the way down in the first floor, moving in towards dining, potentially swinging out their laundry, but he'll just remain relatively passive at the current moment. We've got Unemployment beginning to go for more or less just a main clear, starting out in that first floor. CZ and Hat leading the charge. Whitlock potentially there as well to help burn through some of that utility, maybe even break that main stairs. Shield is a little bit closer towards the bottom end of those stairs, so as long as either the grenades or again those explosive lifelines are in the right position, it could be pretty straightforward to break that shield and probably force back Aqualix from that main stairs location.
Plenty of attackers over there, just one separated from this Unemployment roster right now. Stationed more so over towards red, or Indy also now starting to make his way over into library. A lot of utility now going out. The lifelines trying to burn those ADSs behind that deployable shield. I believe the shield goes as well fairly soon after. Tra will now give up that position. Still play close by, play on top main to swing in case anybody starts pushing up, but with no shotgun playing in that spot, it is a little bit more difficult than it might otherwise.
And no one playing over near the study single window. It does allow an easy fall back to that top floor. Grenades being tossed out by Hat as well, but nothing's going to connect. And Indy just waiting patiently for that potential flank watch as well. I believe Gasher's going to walk right on into him, and because he was already low, it allows a quick kill for Indy, but there is a response by Afer, and CZ gets downed off screen as well, trying to counter that vertical, but it's not enough against the shotgun and SMG combination.
Even with the main stairs control, Beastly still able to get aggressive through one of the holes made behind bar. Tip things a little bit into the scales of Aqualix. Both the Hibana and the Yana lost by Unemployment, and some very powerful utility left in Aqualix's back pocket. 3 Kiba barriers to either block off entry points or create shields to play behind if the defense wants to do it. And also 2 toxic canisters as well that Beastly can use to stop the push up Book's hallway or even into that study doorway, depending on where Beastly wants to peek and where he wants to peek from. Sitting inside the bar right now. Many of the Kiba barriers will go out, though I believe one might be missed. Unfortunately, Hat is able to just start walking on in, crouching onto the maps table, spots one, but he flicks and moves across his screen, doesn't react to Psychosis, standing in the middle outside a statuary doorway. Now once he loses that kill, have to focus on Indy and Whitlock, trying to wait for Aqualix to peek and take these fights, but they don't have a lot of time to do it. Indy exposes his back to Beastly, who will swing and take that freebie, well, without really giving up too much. He also sees Whitlock, and bam, a 3K for Beastly in round number 1. And AQ, despite losing the opening duel, keep things fairly close and take the lead.
And it was a decent amount of control on the first floor, but it took way too long to eventually establish anyone trying to work their way up towards study balcony or even that side window I mentioned earlier to potentially help cut down anyone trying to work their way back up from the middle of main to the top of main stairs and that slight main hallway leading between either study doorway or bookshelves. And when Karn eventually decided to step his way up near that top floor position, he was immediately taken care of. There was no refrag in sight, and then it just was that slow and begrudging charge of death leading into study towards the site. There was great team play by, I believe it was both Afer and Psychosis on the Malusi, and also a zombie combination just waiting for someone to eventually push in from study doorway and towards site. And also, with the lack of manpower, no one was able to properly push out Beastly on the smoke inside of bar as well, allowing a great combination of damage dealt by Aqualix to just clean out the round quite well, despite some of those zombie key barriers just simply not landing properly at all to slow down Unemployment.
That's sometimes the fate of a main stairs clear. Even if you get that main stairs control, there's still utility and shots to be fired or thrown or what have you down through those holes made behind bar. And even if you clear the player off the stairs, they could still get active on top main and waste a little bit more time before you actually make your push up those stairways. Of course, it's trophy statuary now, so might see some presence by AQ over on that side of the map, and we do see Afer on that part of the map, and Tra as well. Thankfully here, because you have those Kiba barriers, normally we'll see some reinforcements placed on that side of the map, but with how much utility Tra can have, he's stocked up 3 of those barriers right now, waiting to be placed, likely reactively for the attack. He can really do whatever he wants and maybe mitigate some of the losses of those reinforcements. But Gasher, unfortunately here, down below, caught as the first pick a second time around, but nobody from Aqualix is in a position to trade like round number 1.
Hat just doing Hat things over on the first floor, is able to catch Gasher off guard, not able to do a single thing on the mute except fish through default cans, perhaps to provide any last-second information. CZ here to join in on the fun potentially as well, and maybe allowing himself to stretch his way deeper in through dining room as well, being droned out by a teammate as well. I believe that either being Indy or Whitlock at the moment. 2 minutes still left on the board, but a pretty decent start overall by Unemployment. Not only do they clear a majority of that roam presence on the middle floor, but also they can begin to go in for those grenades as well, breaking some of those mute jammers and potentially allowing that triple wall to get opened up once we have Unemployment step in the building of master bedroom itself.
Aqualix aren't trying to get too aggressive or overplay their hand. Psychosis is the only one, I think, actually, really outside of Trophy and Statuary. Tra is close by, and I suppose outside, but he's fairly close to the site. Psychosis also now joining the rest of his team as he moves to the top of Astro Stairs. Unemployment have free real estate both down below and even to a certain degree next to the site. Aqualix can swing out and contest, of course, but in terms of getting inside a bedroom and potentially opening up that triple panel, as you said, there's that one angle that they have to worry about on the left side of the wall, but beyond that, feeling okay for the moment. Wow. Tra has some Kiba barriers, maybe to reconstruct the site, deny some angles that Unemployment, or in this case, Hat, might use, but Afer also could be the difference maker. He has bedroom control since no one from AQ has gotten it. Carnage B walks in with no intel. Unfortunately for Aqualix, though, he's not the man with the diffuser. That's Indy at the moment. Now Afer is the only one left. No site control for Aqualix, and, well, Unemployment have a good idea of where the Malusi is positioned since he killed the one player lost on Unemployment. He's found an angle around that single panel, or that single panel opened up, but not able to find any shots. One to his left and diffuser placed directly in front of them. Afer just hoping that Unemployment make a mistake. None happens as Unemployment take their first round on attack. Unfortunately, I believe you cannot hear John. I think he DC'd a little bit. Unfortunate. Hopefully he will get back. I can still hear him. Just, you all can't. He's actually not really talking right now.
And it's
but
fixed.
anyway, oh, never mind. I was literally about to do my job, but never mind. He's not actually back. We are capping. I'm just gonna do John's job for him, since he is not here. Now, what I'm sure what happened that round is, you see, Unemployment took downstairs control, and then what do you know? Hat gets a 3K, gets the first pick on Gasher, or I don't know what he's doing. Probably playing for the C4 late round, but fortunately he dies because, you know, Gasher, unlucky. And then Hat's just sitting down there, they're getting vertical control, then oh, what do you know? Hat kills both players over in Astronomy. Well, that's pretty much the round opened up at that point. Not much work he's got to do beyond that. Unemployment take that opening, start moving on in. And oh no, sure, Carnage vaults in the bedroom, whatever. It's already a 5v2. It's a 4v1 at that point, because they also get the kill on in the site. They can just play man advantage. It's what, a 4v1 on site? Don't worry about it. Tra's dead. Afer sitting in a bedroom. It's all good. I slowly fade back into my own voice as I act like there was a toss there. But I think John is back anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Fingers crossed. You know, something always tends to get a little silly during production, but it's not too shabby. Neither was the overall roam clear by Unemployment, especially Hat leading the charge, just once again doing his own thing, having that LMG to just be completely suppressive on that round, and once again he'll just begin to lead his way in through battle by himself, getting control of 90. CZ not too far behind as well, so the potential for a trade is definitely there, but all depends on that timing. Afer and Gasher also playing relatively close to one another. They could potentially stall out CZ or just outright kill him. All depends on how exactly the Ion wants to fish their own information and potentially either relocate or take these battles head on in the first floor.
Hat just lurking outside a bedroom right now. Might find the first pick of the round. Never mind. As I was about to say, the player that was there has retreated in the closet. Not really giving himself up to that angle, but he also stays still, and that gives Beastly the prime opportunity to get the first pick for Aqualix. And a very important player and a very important operator both taken down. Hat, who single-handedly opened up the previous round with that 3K, and also that Finka with all that utility now gone. Psychosis, unfortunately, though, probably going to give Unemployment the opening they need, or at least the kill they need to make it a 4v4. Once you're in closet, you can have all the Kiba barriers you need, but pretty much giving yourself up to a pinch from the attack.
Beastly still alive on this pulse. That could definitely slow down the vertical presence that is attempted to be gathered by Unemployment. They still seem to be struggling with entering the building fully on that top floor. At least they were able to equalize, so the man count is really in no one's lead as of right now. But again, that timing and placement of the pulse and Sledge's position could really go a long way to really tip the tide in either team's favor.
Some intel on the pulse down below. They know Beastly is there. They might even be able to get an angle on him, depending on where Indy is able to land. Beastly is still stationary. CZ will just go for the shots through the floor, but only put the pulse to 50 HP. Able to survive the spray from CZ down through that top floor. Still that drone remains, and that intel will continue to be a problem for Aqualix if they don't react in time. But alright, as I say that, Beastly does spot that oh so pesky drone. Now he doesn't have to worry about somebody Z-pinging his exact position once he goes on that heartbeat scanner, and Aqualix by extension also don't have to worry about their rotations in sight being spotted and maybe Indy reacting or changing course as a result. Still a 4v4, but only 20 seconds left. Indy continuing to open up these holes, but Aqualix are not getting aggressive on these angles, not giving themselves up to any cutoffs or rotations, waiting for Unemployment to push, and that seems to be maybe the key to victory right now. Carnage finally hops into Bicycle with 10 seconds left, but he's shut down by Afer, who opens up the red wall that he just hopped in front of. Indy will try to recover, try and pick up the pieces, play detective, what just happened, but he walks right into Tra, and unfortunately for Unemployment, they will lose on time.
And simply too much time was wasted on that top floor, Carter. It seemed like it was just too much worry all dedicated towards that pulse and not so much the rest of the roam game that was established in that first floor. The light lurk, in particular by Afer, really went a long way to guarantee that the last second entryway in towards site, because there was no chance we could have Unemployment get that default breach opened up either near pantry or the laundry wall. It had to be a direct hop in by somebody. It allowed Aqualix to clean house in the final 20 seconds and now reclaim the lead as, like I mentioned, their roam game just wasn't really dealt with properly in the first floor, if dealt with at all, to be honest.
Now AQ going back to Aviator Games. Wasn't really a roam that wasn't dealt with on this site because, well, Gasher died fairly easily. He was just shot as Indy was watching the flank, but the main problem here was Unemployment moving up those main stairs. They, well, pushed Tra off of it, not even that slowly. They were able to do it in the first minute and a half. There's everything after that that proved problematic. Nobody was really able to deal with Beastly on those vertical angles. The utility and specifically the gunplay from Beastly still had an impact, and once Unemployment started pushing in, they thought they found an opening, but many of the players inside of the site, like Beastly inside a bar or behind bar, player inside a vault, Unemployment ended up just walking into a crossfire held by the defensive players, and Aqualix, unfortunately for them, came out ahead.
And one big thing that has been slowly changing Unemployment's, play style altogether has almost definitely been, Hat and CZ, that dynamic duo, that main combination, especially since when they find those opening kills, it tends to speed up the overall process. It gets that snowball effect turning into an avalanche for Unemployment to really take control of a round entirely just from winning a couple of opening duels. Now that we've seen Hat and CZ countered a little bit more in some of these rounds, it has definitely shown signs of weakness here for Unemployment, allowing Aqualix to remain in a pretty strong position a majority of these rounds, even if they have to give up some map control early on. Seems like a wall bang, or at least a floor bang, has gone in through towards CZ. He's not dead just yet, but he has lost a bit of HP, and now Unemployment, they're back to their same old strats, trying to go for these grenade tosses underneath to break some of that vital utility, in particular those Kiba barriers that did waste a fair portion of time last time Aviator was in play, and maybe also finding a couple of kills and breaking that shield near main stairway as well.
Maybe the benefit of that is Zombie. Psychosis has one. Of course, he has another one about to regenerate, but he still has one in his pocket if he wants to replace that shield on the map's table. He's got two different options to do it with if he wants to. Doesn't appear to be going that way right now, Psychosis. Once he placed the one or two he did in the prep phase, he's been using them fairly reactively in the game so far. Instead, we'll just hold on to them, waiting for an opening that he thinks could capitalize on something left open by Unemployment. Gasher also still on the roam, but as opposed to round one, Indy doesn't seem to be watching at this time. In fact, no one from Unemployment is focusing too hard on it. They're focused very much on getting that vertical control and that horizontal control now. CZ and Hat both making that work, maybe letting Gasher away from them will start to hurt them in the long run. Nobody watching main at the moment. Never mind, Indy outside the main door. Unemployment not leaving this gap unchecked. CZ as well. Two players focused on Gasher. That's a 1v3 offsite. He picks up the first kill, but unfortunately only counts for the one. And not both players watching his position. Psychosis now moving into study. Does find one. Lands a few shots, but it's still Unemployment with two.
And having, once again, CZ and Hat just being able to do their own thing, going in for those grenades, they established that first floor control pretty early on once again, but they just didn't give away their positions all that much. They were remaining pretty passive overall and just waiting for Aqualix to make that first move in terms of just general reaction. They were still going for those grenade husks like I had mentioned, and they just had enough bodies to stack up over near main stairs to just simply flush out the competition. A majority of that presence that was left by Aqualix was left in towards a roam/lurk. I believe there were 2 players still off site, Gasher and somebody else, as Beastly was just holding in all of Bard Aviator by himself, waiting for the retake to eventually come in through. But again, Unemployment, they remained completely reserved and just forced Aqualix to be in a vulnerable position countless times during that round.
We will have a little bit of a tech pause right now, as there might have been an issue with the connection that round, or even if it got fixed, still we want to try to rehost to make sure it doesn't repeat potentially. So
yeah,
we'll have a little bit of a tech pause for the moment, remake the lobby, so only going to be a couple minutes, and we won't even throw to a break. Still entertain you guys, at least for the time being, and it's still fairly close between Aqualix and Unemployment. They're able to make that main stairs clear work much better that go around, able to, even though Beastly was still behind Bar, as you said, take down a lot of the players working around him, and eventually him as well. To the point where it came down to just Gasher downstairs and living, and Psychosis inside of the site. And when you're in a 2v5 and there's only one player actually on the objective, fairly easy calculus at that point to where you should dedicate your resources going forward. I'm not sure if AQ will attempt Aviator games, but I imagine since that main stairs hold has been taken down, and that seemed to be AQ's main strategy, they could try to revamp it, but maybe try out Trophy. Well, I guess as I say that, Hat did open that one up by himself pretty well last time, John.
Yeah, just walking down to the first floor, finding a couple LMG kills here and there, and then eventually realizing, well, I gotta go upstairs, so he just walked in through Astro, killed 2 more people, and at that point, it's 5v2. Still to worry about the LMGs, and that eventual site execute that we saw heading over in towards Master as well, not only Bathroom and Astro. It was just a lot being thrown at Aqualix all at the same time, and unfortunately not being able to reattempt Dining Room, it is probably gonna have to be a reattempt at Aviator, unless we end up seeing potentially Library in play. But a lot of teams try to avoid it like the plague. Even Aqualix, a team that just, plays this map a lot. So kind of is what it is, I suppose. But for the most part, it again just kind of has been that that opening duel, I guess, that's really been tipping the tide in either one's favor. I hate to keep bringing up the same topic. I sound like a broken record, but it really is true. Hat and Seasy just doing God's work on this round for Unemployment. It really does set the tone correctly for this team.
Course, and then even then, the one round that we didn't necessarily have an AQ opening pick, they still were able to trade it back fairly quickly after that. So it's not exactly 100% a 1-to-1 in terms of who gets the opening pick wins the round. But as you said, if AQ are able to have an impact in that early round so far, if they're able to at least trade it out, they have been able to win the round going forward. Whereas when Unemployment just stack up the kills both times they won it, it's been a 5v2 before anybody from Aqualix has really been able to have an impact. And for the rounds you are winning, that is a very good precedent to set, especially on Villa Attack. And going over towards Trophy, I'm not sure if we'll have a Hat get a 3K to start things out. Not necessarily to start things out, but get the opening pick, kind of a gap in action, and then he kills both the players sitting over in Astronomy again. I doubt we'll see that from Aqualix. Maybe have Gasher play a little bit more reserved, not play downstairs as heavily, or if he does, stay there for the first 45 seconds, then rotate back, deny that entry for Hat. Because as you said, CZ and Hat, they are doing a very good job on this entry, at least so far in this game. But if you take those aggressive players and you deny them the opening that they're seeking, you might start forcing their hand and maybe force them to make a mistake.
Yeah, that's when we see Unemployment begin to slow down and begin to question their own ideas that they're trying to implement. I mean, when we saw that main clear not being all that successful the first time AV was in play, we saw a begrudging rotate up to Study, having Carnage die, and it just completely stopped out any chances, for the most part, of Unemployment salvaging back that round, especially since the team play towards the latter end of the round has looked significantly better when we have Aqualix in a relatively even or sometimes advantageous position. We saw again that stack up by Psychosis and the Malusi player over in round number 1. We saw once again, I believe it was A for that time around, trying to go about and deny anyone from hopping in through like the 90 lower window from Red Hallway, and also anyone trying to go in through Bike as well. They have their stuff together when it comes towards those final 40 seconds, and it's, eventually Unemployment having to make that first move when they're already down in a pretty bad spot. But the early game, I agree with you, Carter. It has to be a little more passive, a bit more reserved, just to guarantee they can get in those end game positions more comfortably.
Well, we have the rehost completed. Everyone back in the lobby. We can take it back into Villa, make sure everything's right, and get back into the game. Right now, AQ looking to reattempt Aviator games, unless they were to switch things in the final 3 seconds, but given how teams, usually a little bit more coordinated than that, they will stick with AVG, and we'll see how Aqualix decide to change things up. They've gone for that main stairs hold, and Unemployment have answered them fairly fervently every single time. Both times it's happened. They tried to clear it out. They had more success the second attempt. Maybe we'll see AQ try to switch up the defense, have some more players roaming over towards Trophy and Statuary. Saw Psychosis, wanting to flex over to that position a little bit. I think Tra moving over there a little bit as well. Maybe now, not only will they have some players more focused over there, but also not have Gasher go on that flank, because even in round number 1, when they ended up winning it, it still gave Unemployment the first pick of the round and hasn't been very impactful in rounds number 1 and round number 4.
Tends to just happen far too late when damage has already been done for the most part. Unemployment usually get control of that first floor very early on, and it does force Gasher back for a very substantial amount of time, making him almost impactless until those that final minute mark, for example, where he still ends up maybe finding only 1 kill and then gets immediately traded, because Unemployment at that point are expecting the roam game to go for that retake. They try to rotate around. Unemployment, they've got those angles held quite well, and it just adds more kills to the kill count, I suppose, for Unemployment outright. And it seems like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They'll try to just reattempt the exact same clear they've been doing time in and time out when this site has been in play, and I really don't blame them. It's been looking pretty decent for the most part.
Yeah, you've been able to overcome the resistance mounted against you, and if CZ's able to get a nade from below like he was before, it's going to be very good. Nade goes a little bit short, unfortunately, so 1 gone from CZ's arsenal, but still plenty of an opportunity to not only use the second one, but use it guided by intel. They want to drone out that study position. It's not exactly like CZ is inaccessible from the control Unemployment have so far, so an option they could certainly take with the ample time they have remaining. Gasher also, he's not downstairs, but he is still on the potential for that flank, and he might have to rejoin the site players because Psychosis falls the earliest he ever has.
And once again, another well-tossed nade by CZ on that Iana pick. Seems like although Aqualix had the insider information that the vertical would be there once again, they just weren't able to evade the grenades well enough to lose out on that first gunfight. CZ narrowly gets that headshot on towards Afer, but looks like the Melusi is able to survive just because of some natural stuff blocking the natural line of sight. Vertical still being done and some extra lines of sight being opened up here for Indy via that breaching hammer, but still decent pacing overall for Unemployment. And besides the fact that no one has moved up in towards study just yet, things are looking quite well for the offense, and maybe in trying to find another kill via those grenades.
Afer, trying to play aggressive and retake study, has some fruit born via his efforts. Finds Carnage B, the Hibana, but the man with the diffuser as well. He drops it outside, so the attack, as you can see, can pick it right back up. But still, that's hard reaching gone, and Tra also on top of main stairs. This is what sometimes can trip up teams. You clear out the stairs, but there's still someone on top who can contest this position. Fortunately for Tra, though, that smoke is obscuring his vision. Indy, he takes some damage, but he can use it for cover and take the Jaeger completely off guard. Beastly only has 1 remaining, 10 seconds for him to waste, and Gasher doesn't really have the option to C4 from below anymore. He likely has to aid Beastly on the site hold unless one of them is able to get active, maybe bring a kill a little bit closer in line with what Aqualix's current capabilities are. Gasher has now moved into 90, but there's somebody watching. Not the same position, but Indy aware of the potential angle. Gasher peeks and does see it. Indy falls off as a result. Not wanting to maybe play his cards just too early. Instead, rotate over to study, and right as Gasher goes to meet their rotation, he falls to Hat. You see the close angle with the shotgun. Fortunately for him, every attacker a little bit too far away to make that very effective. And right as he tries to deal with the player in books, the player he was just dealing with inside his study peeks and gives Unemployment the round.
And the positioning towards the end of that round was really solid by Unemployment. Although they had a lack of information, just being able to have that stack up over near main stairs and someone eventually repositioning back in towards study balcony, it eventually confirmed that kill on the Jaeger, and expecting Gasher to be doing the exact same thing he tried last time, still being on that roam game. They either go for a flank up through the middle floor, working their way towards main stairs, or they're probably helping out Beastly in the site, watching it over through 90, expecting a rotate to happen in through the skull doorway. It was well read out by Hat. He confirmed that kill, and Beastly is, although in an okay position with those toxic smokes, there are just too many players in the site to deal with all at the exact same time. Couldn't really go for a proper kill as well to make it that 1v2. Unemployment will now take the lead off of, once again, decent team play and a fabulous start by none other than, you guessed it, CZ on the Iana.
Yeah, he's been very good with those nades so far. Opened up 2 rounds in a row now with it, albeit one a lot earlier on than the previous one. The other was the first was a nade in the mid to late round. The first one was within the first minute. So CZ definitely having a good job with that secondary utility so far. Won't have as much of a position for nading from below on Kitchen because, well, it's Kitchen. It's on the first floor. But he does rotate to the buck, and alongside Indy will give a wide wide variety of options and a wide capability for self-destruction on that top floor. If any gets taken down by a C4 from Beastly, for example, hey, you got a buck to back that up.
And in general, just having two soft destructors, it just speeds up the process overall of getting that vertical down. That was one of the biggest problems by Unemployment last time Dining was in play, was just their lack of a readjustment once they got the vertical down. They were very focused on trying to deal with Beastly properly while also opening up these countless sight lines. They completely forgot about how Aqualix can still roam on that first floor and hold multiple angles to make sure it has to be pretty much a funnel or just a improper push altogether by Unemployment. This time around, it seems like for Unemployment, again, having that buck and sledge combination and also pushing their way in through study, it seems like they want to alleviate all those problems they had last time and really be more proactive than what we saw last time Dining was in play.
I was about to say, we saw Psychosis starting to move out into Statuary or outside of the Statuary doorway. He'll put a Kiva barrier into that very entrance to cover his retreat. Still takes an aggressive fight, but doesn't die to CZ pushing up behind him. That's, I believe, both times now where Hat is the opening pick on this kitchen attack. First time by the C4, but this time by just the gunplay from Psychosis. And Afer looks to get a second as an air jab goes down, and Whitlock gets a little bit too short. Not aware of that main stairs red position, or that main floor red position. Unfortunately for Unemployment, the intel continues to be the bane of their existence. Doesn't relay to Whitlock, the player playing right below him, and doesn't relay to CZ, the Frostomat, below his Wolf window jump in. Now it's a 5v2, make that a 5v1 as a result. Psychosis cutting down Indy, leaves Carnage B on Astro window, the only one left. And John, I don't know if he has it.
It would be a wise assumption to say Carnage Basketball does not have this round. It is a 1v5. Low on teammates, low on resources, really low on everything. So this is most likely going to be a 3-3 split going in that second half. Carnage almost gets one kill towards Mudroom window, but if he kills the Pulse, you still got to worry about 4 other players, and you're relatively limited on time. So more or less, a timeout just might be inadvertently used here by Karn just to try to reevaluate their situation going in the second half. Overall, not a bad place at all, being 3-2. You had a lot of successful rounds, but again, that lack of information that you and I both have now discussed definitely has been a major oversight for Unemployment, and if they were a little bit better on that info game, they most definitely could have had more success on that first half. At least Karn is able to find one for his troubles, but still, it's a round that's most likely not going to go in his favor.
Now, last thing AQ wants to do right now is give Karn 5 1v1s and then, well, give him the 4-2 half, but with only 30 seconds left, I think it might be mathematically impossible for AQ to do that at this point, just given the positions. We'll shoot a C4 out of the air. Gasher just throwing something at him, saying, hey, maybe I can pad my stats this way, but nope. Not able to do it. It is Beastly in the end to give the 3-3 half to Aqualix, though the round was won pretty much a long time before that, with Hat falling very early. Unfortunately, CZ, I believe, looking at the floor when both him and Hat were moving out of that skull doorway means that he's got to react. Psycho has already moved inside of bedroom itself, or inside of Statuary itself. And at that point, AQ were already struggling to make up that early loss, and every time they took a gunfight after that, they lost it, and even further, you had CZ hopping into a Frostmat, and that's an easy kill for Beastly to make it a 5v2. So overall, not the best round for Unemployment to end things out on their attacks. Plus also, 2 out of the 3 rounds, I believe, came from Hat getting a 3K at various points throughout the rounds. So overall, it was a little bit individual heavy on Unemployment for their attacking wins, and going to the defense. If it's similar, I mean, it's a best of 1. Hat's a very good player as well, so maybe they can make it work. But maybe Aqualix could be a little bit more consistent with the new system they have.
Wondering to see how exactly Traw's going to want to play into the fact there is no Nook. That was kind of his main op to go for, whether he wanted to play that role or not. Seems like he will still try to be proactive in some way of dealing with that roam game, just this time opting for a more info-based operator rather than info-denial op, bring out the Jackal with those Inox scanners. Also, Psychosis rocking the Ying and not re-picking off of her just yet could potentially allow for maybe a very hasteful push in towards site, perhaps, with those Ying Candela, especially when there is no Amai. With him being banned, for the most part, you only have to worry about maybe some of those shield positions and those ADSs, and after that, it's pretty much just an easy access way in towards site, and maybe that potential to find something for your troubles. But Traw, a beautiful opening, sniping down Hat as he tried going for a spawn peek. Aqualix immediately take the man advantage off that.
I mean, not a lot of utility lost on the side of Unemployment, but no, things are just...
Wow.
Right as I said, not a lot of utility lost. Yeah, that one is significantly worse than losing to Malusi in the first 30 seconds. CZ not even getting too aggressive there, just rotating in front of an open window that, unfortunately for him, Psychosis was holding a very long angle on. Whitlock now going down as well. A 5v2, only 40 seconds into the round. You've lost your Azami, a C4 from the Mute, and Hat. who doesn't bring a lot of utility on the Malusi, or at least recurring utility. He's already placed down the Banshees. But still a very good player who has almost single-handedly opened rounds for Unemployment so far. And now Indy has got to get aggressive and start taking fights off-site. Same with Carnage as well. And there's 2 whole minutes for AQ to gather intel.
This doesn't really look all that great for Unemployment, to say the least. They are just eventually being closed out on by the offense. Indy by himself in sight. Karn is not too far behind, but has to play a little farther back due to the fact we have more or less that 90 and skull push rather than the main push we have seen a couple of times during that first half. Definitely a lot to ask for here for both the Jaeger and Smoke to try to play in tandem and try to isolate a couple of times, but in the past, Unemployment have actually won a 5 versus 2 position that almost seemed impossible. So maybe things could brew up for a potential clutch that we weren't expecting, but Aqualix, they seem to be dotting their I's and crossing their T's to guarantee they get this 4th round as a win.
Smoke start going in. I was going to say there's 1 player on Study Balk, but AQ haven't even made that oversight. 2 players on Study right now, Beastly and Psychosis. One of them with Candelas to start going in. They will blind Karn as he tries to retake Study. Psycho just holding another long angle, which is pretty much how he's gotten all these kills so far. We'll get him a 3K, and Beastly rounds AQ out for a flawless first attack.
And we had at least the opening attempted by both the side of CZ and Hat, although they were immediately shut down. Not even so much by CZ. He just got caught on a bad rotation by Psychosis, holding the longest angle with the Ying LMG. Big question definitely procs up if we have Unemployment potentially try to rock out the Warden, and it seems like that will be a definite. They don't want to risk having to get fully blinded out when we have those Candelas start flying in through during the final moments of that round. Although it was not necessary last time we saw Ying in play, it definitely is better to be safe than sorry. Also, to think about it as well, maybe having the Ying now go for a attacker repick could be the wise idea, since, you know, the Warden does directly hard counter those Candelas, and maybe pick something a little more useful. Maybe extra, you know, soft destruction, maybe extra grenades, whatever tickles Psychosis' fancy, I suppose.
Candelas are still very good if you're able to maybe take down the Warden early on, or if you're even able to nail down his position and just hard focus it, see if he swings, and not take those Candelas and those blindings as an assumption. Could still make it work, but nope, Psychosis will switch to the Yana as a result. Instead, just using it to force Unemployment's hand, make Hat go with that Warden, and then move to somebody with, as you said, not that Ying's utility isn't useful, but something that, you know, can't be countered by somebody pressing their primary gadget key. Another switch as well, Tra moving from the Jackal to the Lion, can still aid on that full clear if Aqualix want to clear from Master Bedroom on over, but a little bit more versatile, since Unemployment weren't exactly roaming too far offside, but at the same time, AQ also didn't give them much of a chance to set up offsite.
That is a fair point to make, but at least looking at this on paper, Tra would definitely prefer to bring out the Lion here, especially, like you mentioned, there's no heavy roam emphasis, and you can use that Lion much more effectively if you still have a couple of Lion charges in your back pocket when going in for that execute. It definitely sweetens the deal when you want to go in for that push directly. And also, Psychosis bring out some extra grenades that can definitely weaken the site presence altogether as well, whether you want to play in that first floor like we saw by Unemployment with those grenades, or just saving them for the top floor and burning through both those cube barriers and also the shields that are randomly placed about the map as well, since we have seen Smoke and play a majority of these rounds, and, well, he's almost always going to bring a shield. I mean, it's just too good of a piece of equipment to not bring out.
Similar logic with the Azami, just so many potential deployable shields. Why not put her in an aggressive position like CZ is playing? They might get cut off on a bad rotation, but on the bright side of things, if you're able to have an impact, you can damage Psychosis fairly extensively and also stall a little bit of that entry into that part of the map. 2 players fall, of course, both Tra and Hat dying to each other. And that kind of does create the scenario I talked about before. If you're able to get an early pick on that Warden or isolate his position, in this case it's the former of those 2 options, that Ying could have had an impact, but AQ played it safer and probably smarter overall. So even though that Warden is gone and those Candelas might have been useful, important thing they can still focus on is Hat is gone, who so far has been one of the better players for Unemployment. Whitlock is moving into 90. Maybe take a similar role to that Hat might play, trying to get aggressive, bring that man count into a more favorable position, but right as players start repelling on 90, goes back in sight.
Not a bad call to make. Can definitely try to utilize some of those toxic smokes and maybe even the nitrocell as well, just to keep Aqualix at a safe distance. But although we don't have those Candelas, which could have been very effective for clearing out good portions of the site, still having several sets of grenades is definitely going to go a long way for Aqualix to not only remove these keeper barriers, but also try to potentially find some sort of kill, as they have tons of stuns to burn through those ADSs. They just need to be in the right place at the right time, essentially.
He's able to get active, take down Psychosis as he starts to move on into the building with the rest of his team. 45 seconds left. Smoke canisters start going out. C4 in the hands of Whitlock as well. might be able to go down below with where AQ are playing right now and get a C4 downstairs and living room if he wants. Indy also has some control of study. Nobody from AQ rotating over to that part of the map yet. He's able to play that angle or even help and aid and abet Whitlock's rotation downstairs if he wants to. Second to last, make that last toxic canister goes out, denying 2 separate entry points for AQ to start making their way into the building. Diffuser also not even in the hands of the defense right now. AQ have a lot of ground to cover, both metaphorically and physically speaking, if they want any hope of winning this round. CZ, Indy, Karn, and Whitlock all have a crossfire on this position, but Beastly makes the vault in behind the vault doorway. Gasher down as a result, and right as CZ swings, he loses the fight in the 2v3 short, but Beastly gets the plant off successfully, and right as Indy swings, Beastly remains alive, albeit only for a short amount of time. Both Aether and Gasher back off. He has a very small time to go for this res. You'll just have to bait it out. Does see one player cross the window. He has to win the fight with Karn. Whitlock is sticking it. He's got so many bullets, but Karn's got the better aim. With the defuse, Unemployment win their first defense.
And although things looked a little rough, still allowing the player to hop in and get that defuse down, I did like the way, especially Carnage played in that position, utilizing those smoke grenades with the fact that there was no one pushing in from study, cutting off the only 2 probable entryways that Aqualix had, both the 90 hallway and also Skull. He might have ripped that last smoke charge a little too early, but it did still stall a lot of time for Aqualix, and it really did force their hand that they needed to get the plant in. If that nitro cell potentially had been landed properly, that could have stopped the plant altogether, and that could have been a much cleaner round for Unemployment altogether. But because their retake was still pretty strong, as Aqualix were still recovering mid-post plant during those final 5 seconds, it was just enough to make this an equalized position, as Unemployment were still in a lot of strong positions to just outduel a majority of Aqualix players.
And that's the only site we've seen so far. Unemployment give AVG a second attempt. They end up winning it. They'll now go to Trophy Statuary. And as we saw, sure, it wasn't the most highly impactful play, but CZ able to remain alive on that Azami burns maybe 15, 20 seconds of extra time. And in the end, that does make a little bit of a difference when AQ is executing with only 10 seconds left and even still just managed to get the plant off. No Azami this go around. Instead, we have a Goyo, which places the focus in that time denial, that time wasting, from off the site to on the site. Now you have those Goyo packs and those Vulcan canisters that, if Unemployment can waste a similar amount of time, those alone will burn a whole 20 seconds each if AQ try to go in for the plant.
Doesn't seem like a bad idea in the slight, especially since Aqualix were down to the wire trying to hit the bomb site and just barely got that plant down. Again, if there was just slightly better positions held by Unemployment, they probably could have stopped the plant altogether and have probably won that round a little bit easier than expected. Aqualix, though, trying to waste as little time as possible, already trying to enter their way in through Laundry, gathering tons of information with those Geminis, and also beginning to try to clear their way out through Top Master as well, through that back balcony too. Traz even by his lonesome as well, across the map over near Study, maybe trying to catch any roamers off guard that want to go in a late rotation, whatever seems fitting for him. He's always been that lurk kind of player, just on his own, gathering his own information, already utilizing both of his drones as they've been completely destroyed, but those 3 Inox scanners could really go a great distance, especially when dealing with Haz, he begins to fall back.
Hoping that maybe he could get a lucky first pick there, but he'll rotate off, as you said. No Traz there. No reason to get too aggressive, especially if you can deny some control for AQ off-site before they get to the site. They're going for a direct take right now. At least most of them are stationed outside of Master Bedroom. Things could change, but based on the positions right now, seems like we have a good idea what AQ's game plan is. You have that Hibana to get the ranged hard breach all the way from outside the window as well, so no reason to even step foot inside of Master Bedroom. They do have to worry about Indy playing aggressively on that single panel, but even as I say that, it's opened up fairly effectively. Indy instead playing on that bricks doorway. Even there, something that, 1, Unemployment need to be careful they don't get too over-aggressive with, but 2, something that AQ are aware of.
Aqualix still have not been able to work this first pick just yet, and as we see that time begin to get slower and slower, those Vulcan packs could really be a huge factor in this round. And still having some of this roam presence alive and well, Hat just now being noticed in through Mudroom, he could still waste about 20-30 seconds, give or take, depending on his placement outright, just to really make sure Aether has to watch his back twice.
And only 2 drones for AQ means that Aether might have to actively be watching his back. Who might be actively in use or in positions or on flanks that aren't exactly covered, so AQ will have to do double duty in both with low time, worrying about pushing into the site, but also with low drones, worrying about somebody potentially flanking up, say, downstairs. You can see Psychosis watching that position, but Aether is only tagged up a little bit. Beastly still gets the first pick, and as Hat swings out, he's able to down 1 player, but turns his back to the other. Kill is confirmed for Hat, but still, Aqualix just don't care about this player on brown stairs. 3 players all sprint past him, but with CZ down below as well, he blows up the C4, but blows it a little too early. AQ have the control and have the kill as well. Hat already on low HP, they finally finish him off, but CZ's rotate is uncontested. Knows somebody's on that brick doorway, he has intel right there. Downs Beastly, not the man with the diffuser, that's Gasher. That means he can put the bomb on the floor and Psychosis can cover him, but only 5 seconds. Psycho sees it, but Psycho fails. He loses the fight, but Gasher sticks it. Pros do not fake, and in this case, Gasher, he's a clean, clinical professional. He's got to decide to swing. He goes prone instead, loses almost 1 HP, but now it's a duel between the 2 former AQ players. 1 bullet will be the end of either of them. Gasher hops down. Very smart play. CZ now guessing, but he can watch the Astro stairs. As a result, Gasher cannot overplay his hand. Again, just 1 bullet will be the end of either of these 2 players, and Gasher's the one that lands it. 1 tap in the head right as CZ stands on the diffuser. AQ take the lead once again.
And although the roam game was pretty strong, Hat almost salvaging that round for his team, the overall site clear was surgical enough to get the job done outright. It truly was just only up to the lone Goyo and Alibi to try to have ends meet, as the clear and through master was successful enough. You had people pushing in through both bathroom and top Astro as well, and just simply ignoring the Alibi to an extent. Again, it almost costed them, but with the site presence completely crumbling, it still allowed that plant to go down and just barely scrape away a victory, despite things getting quite literally 2 players on 1 HP. CZ just barely losing out on that fight, but Gasher still able to play that 1v1 well enough to get the dub.
Yeah, a matter of who could make better use of the extremely tight angle held inside of the site or into Astro, depending on your perspective and which player you were observing or watching at any given time. Still an incredibly close game between AQ and Unemployment, despite AQ taking the lead. It's also now the first time we will see Kitchen and Dining come through. As opposed to Aviator Games, Unemployment tried it out 2 separate times, but this time they lose Trophy Statuary and will hop off of it very quickly. That isn't to say they're changing methodology. We see Hat go to the Oryx, and likely a similar strategy as before, where we'll see Hat just kind of moving around the map, trying to find an opportunity, or in the case of last round, in the late round, trying to find a kill.
And it makes sense. Hat wasn't properly dealt with until, the few last moments of that round, essentially. He was constantly moving about, and honestly, the most mobile op being Oryx, it does make sense that he wants to rock that operator in particular, and especially when you have that whole basement floor to just kind of dash through, potentially go up a couple of hatches here and there as well. Just always keep Aqualix on their toes to potentially equalize this position. Once again, Indy going for a spawn peek, but it seems like no one's moved over and towards that part of the map. But at least CZ finds some success, locking down 1 kill with that spear. However, Indy having no info that A-First already inside a library, there's an immediate equalization in the first 40 seconds.
And good droning by Aqualix to read into that position. Of course, they do lose Psychosis fairly early on. Not sure if that was the fault of intel or Psychosis maybe just losing a fight, getting turned on. We don't exactly know. But he does fall. Trading back Indy. You'd lose, sure, a position downstairs, but Gone 6 nades and a Yana clone that could burn all those Aruni gates with not any cost to substantial utility. Definitely a trade that Unemployment are more than happy to give, especially Indy going for that spawn peak. You're already kind of signing away your, you're okay if you die at that point, is the point I'm trying to make. AQ have made some progress on this horizontal clear as well, but without dealing with Hat on that top floor, vertical control is a bit too far away for AQ right now, and also just a very dangerous player to leave out in the wild.
Well, CZ able to reposition once again, this time over near Memo. Seems like Aqualix are still not fully mocked up to go in towards that top floor. Seems like they're going for a more horizontal take overall, which almost nets CZ another kills. He's waiting patiently for someone to walk in through that library doorway, but is not able to connect a shot directly on the head. April will remain alive, and Aqualix slowly trenching their way closer and closer towards, at the very least, Memo to potentially hit that site, but still a lot needed to be done in these next 60 seconds.
And again, not a lot of intel to do it with. Aqualix getting low on these drones. 3 drones left, but only 1 can actively be used by Trial. The other 2 died with Psychosis. So, obviously, probably not on the field, unfortunately. Or if they were, you could still use them, but you want to get any more active intel, and that's probably 2 gone. You got to say goodbye to that possibility. AQ will still try to open up some new angles, but with Hat still upstairs, all those Hibana charges that Beastly just placed will be shot by the Oryx. And AQ might now be aware of that presence up top, and they will go to clear it. Gasher actually wins the fight. Despite Carnage taking down A4 just a little bit before, they've taken out a very powerful player on that top floor, but still no real angles or openings found inside of the site. And again, right as I say that, Gasher is able to take down Karn, and everyone can now turn their attention towards CZ. He's doing quite a bit of damage, but both him and Whitlock suffer about the same, and both fall simultaneously. AQ move to match point.
and eventually being able to deal with Hat on that roam game. That was the only thing properly slowing them down in the round, and also having CZ just essentially trapped inside of Memo as well. It didn't leave many more options left for Unemployment once we eventually had that one X factor that we saw almost salvage the round previous before that, eventually fall once again by that LMG the Finka was rocking. Match point now for Aqualix, as they are at least able to clean up those endgame rounds much more effective than what we saw a few moments ago. And Aviator now being reattempted by Unemployment. They had previous success on there for round number 8, but we also can look across a round before that where we had a complete blowout by Aqualix as well, wasting no time winning those entry fights and trying to hit the site as quickly as possible, essentially.
Yeah, there was a little bit of an asterisk on that round. It's just something that was, well, very fortunate for AQ given their positioning. They were able to take down one player, I believe, going for a spawn peek, but then just catch another player rotating in front of a window. And Psychosis, just, having a little bit of foresight, thought maybe we'll see someone, especially with Hat and CZ on the other team. They like to roam, they like to get aggressive. Maybe if I go on this angle, I'll catch someone rotating in front of that window. And what do you know? He did. And then they even got a kill after that, making it a 2v5. So it was a very quick early round, just from some chances taken by AQ that ended up paying out in the end. But that second round is probably a little bit more indicative of the play we could expect from Unemployment on Aviator games once they aren't taken out very early on. They're able to waste, 15 seconds here, 20 seconds here, not really getting kills, but still wasting time for Aqualix as they start moving into the building. And if they're able to do that again, keep control of some important parts of the map like Study, like they were able to do in the late round, even though Aqualix got the plant down, they fought for every single inch, and even then, they still came up short.
Aqualix just need to make sure they speed up their eventual rotates that happen, or at least try to implement those rotates from happening. They focused way too much just trying to work their way in through both Skull and 90, not even getting that vault wall opened up either. So it forced a direct funnel, especially when Karn was still alive, having a couple of smoke grenades left in their back pocket. It really was a perfect position for Unemployment, besides the fact they just let Aqualix slip through those small gaps to get that defuse down. But again, the retake, it was pretty pristine for Unemployment. They were still able to get the round win regardless. We just need to see that time management just a little bit better on the side of Aqualix, and again, those positions needing to change faster in the round to actually have more than one attacking option lined up for you.
Psychosis going for that same angle as opposed to before. CZ tries to challenge it, but dies to Psychosis. The same player dies to the same angle, to the same player holding it. Of course, Hat hasn't fallen yet. Before CZ was second, it was Hat the first to go down on the side of Unemployment. Maybe a little bit of an over-aggressive play by CZ, now giving an opening. Not a lot of important utility lost, but Hat's still able to bring it back. Spots the drone right as it goes by his feet, and takes down Afer right behind it. But two players both go down on the side of Aqualix. And to make that 3, Hat peeking into Master Bedroom. Things have switched completely over towards Unemployment's side. Now Hat will probably make the smart decision and rotate back with the damage dealt.
Hat just simply in his element. In the first minute of the round, things have dwindled down into a 3 versus 2. And the fallback, it's happened by Unemployment, but they're in a pretty good position to do that. Traw can still feed a bunch of information for himself and Beastly as well with those Inox skinners, and there are a couple of drones left alive to gather more information, but still having to worry about a multitude of that basic utility. Those ADS is also dealing with those smoke grenades as well. It can definitely be very challenging for Aqualix to properly push in the site if need be, especially if Unemployment just remain calm and collected and don't really overextend, since they already have the man advantage going in this next minute 20.
Again, they have that ever-important piece of study control as well, and as opposed to even 3v3s, where AQ might be able to dedicate someone and move them over to that window here, 2v3, not something you can really afford. They do still have Traw's secondary shotgun, and even with no nades, he's able to go down below and take down the mute jammer on vault walls. So an important angle opened up that they can make good use of, make a rotation in through vault. Maybe not more difficult, just because, again, you don't have a lot of manpower to allocate to watching flanks, but still make it a little bit more uncertain, depending on where AQ push from and what Unemployment want to do. Those Inox as well will spot one player inside of the site, but you didn't need to be Nostradamus to guess that Unemployment are all playing in or around the bomb site right now. Hat will be blinded inside of Study. Very important position dealt with, but he's still there, and he can recover from that flashbang fairly quick. Smoke grenades now going on in. Beastly has to move in with this diffuser at some point. Even with Karn, he's still constantly smoking out the position. Even 10 more seconds on the clock potentially dealt with. He's got to start moving on in. and Aqualix have to make the most of a bad situation. He'll move to 90 right now. Hope to see anybody inside a vault that he can take down and make a 2v2, but nobody is biting from Unemployment. He'll start walking on in. Indy does bite. Indy does swing. And Unemployment do win the round after a very impactful early game by Hat.
Yeah, having him just be able to do his own thing, find a couple of quick kills, and that team play just not being in the right position to deal with Hat properly, it allowed that man advantage to remain on top for Unemployment, and I loved how reserved everyone remained, including Hat, just to guarantee they keep that man advantage, and acknowledging that Aqualix just straight up refused to rotate into Study Balcony, that they could hold that prime position and make sure it's 10 times more difficult to actually push in through Skull Doorway with not only having to worry about someone throwing in smoke grenades, that being Carnage, but also having someone directly look down that line of sight to have to instigate some sort of gunfight, which in that 2 versus 3, not a single gunfight was won by the offense. Unemployment getting a little bit closer to maybe bring us to overtime, but they still need one more clean round to lock it in.
This round, or the last attempt at Trophy Statuary, was anything but clean for both of these teams. Came down to a 1v1 on 1 HP for both combatants in this case. Even then, if CZ wanted to win it, he still would have had to get the defuse as well. So as close as you can get for rounds like that. Not exactly a good sign for either team, to be perfectly honest, but hey, still something that AQ can point to as we won before. Let's try to repeat that success again. The first kill for Beastly also didn't come down until very late into the game, once AQ were starting to push up Astro Stairs, and there were still some factors that hadn't been dealt with. Hat downstairs on the roam. If a couple more shots go his way, that round probably goes to Unemployment without even needing to worry about a post plant or a defuse. So Aqualix need to put a little bit more focus on Hat if they want to deal with him, or at least keep him isolated.
I can imagine that's why we have the Jackal in selection here, maybe having both those Inox scanners and the Gemini to try to locate Hat as quickly as humanly possible to make sure you potentially either work that first entry or make sure the roam game gets denied pretty early in that round due to some sort of fallback being forced by the hand of Unemployment. Seems like Afer will now be opting in to go for the Finka. Funny enough, rocking the spear instead of the LMG, but oh well. Still hits like a truck, so it's not that bad a weapon to bring out in the slightest. And Hat potentially being droned out just a few moments. He's not too far away from this position leading in through both Laundry and Dining side. CZ losing a bit of HP, but still alive. Unfortunately, his teammate of Hat, though, will get shut down by Afer rocking that spear, and now CZ, he has to think twice whether he wants to fall back or double down on this play. Seems like go for the latter, and only now does he find that refrag.
But there's Tra going in for the clear. Indy's able to play the trade game and refrag his teammate. We have lost Hat and CZ, who so far, especially the former, have been so potent in this game so far. Whitlock having a little bit of a rough go at it since the rehost, especially 0-5. Not having Hat, who has been so consistent on both attack and defense for Unemployment so far. It's going to hurt, even with the man count even. Again, said this on the previous game. Unemployment were able to take down that Finka. No more Gons. No more nades from below, at least from that operator. You still have to worry about Gasher, still have to worry about Psychosis, but still that operator with such a powerful kit at her disposal is gone.
At 20 remains. That does give time Aqualix to still go in for these grenade plays underneath, and also maybe try to still get that triple opened up with Beastly remaining alive, although that would take a lot of time, and again, that resource game might be a little bit too short here. Carnage tries to hop down through the hatch to go for a hero play, but gets immediately denied by Psychosis. Now the offense will retake the lead going in the final minute, and all that's left at this point is just the site presence directly held by Unemployment.
With Astronomy down, that's the gateway you wanted to allow you to move into the site. You also still have 3 nades to go from below if you want to with the time you have remaining. Full nade behind Astro Desk just to be safe. Nobody there, of course, but better safe than sorry. You still have 2 as well, 1 for Psychosis, 1 for Gasher. You maybe bank off that left split doorway to land right at Indy's feet, or even throw deep into Wolf to try to make it work. They have info below, but unfortunately goes on the opposite side of the wall. Indy a little too far away. Only left up to Gasher. Aqualix want to try to get a kill by avoiding gunplay. 2 flashes as well for once they start moving on in. Bricks is where AQ have decided they want to stake their hopes of winning this in regulation. Nade goes over, but caught by ADS. Final flash as well. No more gunfights, or no more gunfights they can avoid, or gunfights they can make easier. But Psychosis swings, and it's pretty easy when Indy turns his back to you. So what does Whitlock to do? He has a C4, does spot 1, but loses the fight to Psychosis. AQ, it's all been 7-5 so far. But finally, for the first time in Stage 2, they're on the winning side, on the 7 side of that equation.
Unemployment definitely put up a good fight, but eventually Aqualix were just able to outmaneuver Unemployment. They were able to get a good read as to how Unemployment were winning a lot of their rounds, and pretty much stopped a lot of that bleeding from happening on their own, and the hemorrhaging was most certainly not a problem towards those final couple of rounds. They were able to lock things out quite successfully, besides on Aviator, but they still did pretty good throughout the rest of the matchup altogether, still being able to fight back and forth for those entry games. And although we did have CZ and Hat off their leash, eventually they were still put in the kennel by Aqualix, as they were still able to come out 7-5.
And unfortunately, what might be the sad, well, actually, not even sad, I guess technically the happiest moment of all, CJ, by not predicting Aqualix, by predicting unemployment, and I guess preying on AQ's downfall, he actually does it. He reversed Caster,
right.
cursed him, and he gave AQ the victory. It wasn't any of their gameplay, it wasn't anything. It was all CJ not rooting for them, at least explicitly. But AQ will get their first win in Challenger League, and we can throw it back to the desk to break down what, again, is overall a good AQ performance, despite it being their first victory.
Well, I don't want to jinx anything here, so I'm not gonna throw to you, Cookies. I'm gonna opt to go to Connor on this one. Is this the start for Aqualix? Is this the launching pad that they needed? Because this was a good game on their part.
Yeah, this was an incredibly good game, especially on a map like Villa, where if you're getting really comfortable on the roam as a defender, you can start really taking over games. And guess what? That's what everybody's favorite head article of clothing, Mr. Hat, was able to do on the side of unemployment, where it was, hey, if Hat's still alive, they probably won this round. 3K, 4K, 3K, 3K. It seemed so repetitive for every round of unemployment that Hat was the common denominator. And for Aqualix being able to handle that early pressure, and even when unemployment was throwing the kitchen sink on the roam, there was 3, sometimes even 4 people over there. The trade game from Aqualix looked incredibly clean, probably the cleanest we've ever seen out of any iteration of this roster, because on those executes, they were not in a man disadvantage. It was 3v3s, it was 2v2s, and the support core for Aqualix, they were just that little bit better today.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can talk about Hat all day long. I think he had 4 3Ks or 3 3Ks and a 2K, something insane. But Cookies, Psychosis. Let's not forget about this guy. He had some big rounds, and more importantly, they were important rounds to win for his team.
Definitely. One thing actually really, I mean, of course, you just generalized it. Thank you for doing my job, Rim. Okay. But also,
I know how much you love to do mine sometimes, so I figured,
yeah,
tit for tat, little bit.
Well,
little bit in, little bit
let
out.
me give you a specific one. I loved his Azami plays. He had some creative ones on. I guess, is it really a creative? He's just throwing knives around, but he had one that was really good on maps. If you guys remember, like PB used to put barbed wire there and like try to play it that way.
People put a shield on there.
Yeah. Now it's just the zombies. He had one round as well where I want to say, we talk about Hat so much. Hat was like chasing him. Somebody was chasing him from unemployment. He just threw a perfect Azami, got away, played his life well. And that's what Aqualix really needs to kind of get over the hump. They did that to a good extent in this game. And look at Hat there, 14-8. He only went 2 for 4 in the entry. But let's not focus on the negatives, guys. Let's focus on the positives. Most of the rounds unemployment won, especially on the attacking side, was just this guy running around, being mobile. He had the athleticism. He was the athlete for Karn's team. Everyone else seemed to, and he played decently as well, but everyone else kind of had anchors in their boots. Hat was really the driving force for this team, and they really are awaiting Michael E's return from Korea, because he's on a trip. He's chilling. He's big chilling right now. His team needs it badly.
I mean, obviously you want one of your starters to come back, but we joke about this, each Playday now, is that who knows what that team's even going to look like when he returns. Is it better? Is it worse?
I think they would have won this game. I think because Mikey's ridiculous, right? Like, we talk about Mikey's.
He can be.
Well, the biggest thing, CJ, that we talked about so much is, where is a certain man that goes by CZ? And we've hyped up CZ so much because we've seen the skill that he can put on display. He's one of the most mechanically gifted players in all of Challenger League, and that's not a controversial take by any stretch of the imagination. This man has gone negative almost every single game, and it's because if you look at the spacing on the entries of unemployment, there's just something off. The spacing is off. It's either CZ is too close to Hat or he's too far away. We can gas up Hat all we want and say like, oh, he's getting all these kills. Look at the space he's making. The space might not necessarily mean as much if he's not communicating, if he's not more in sync with his second entry, because it's leaving gaps that are being exploited by teams like Aqualix. You saw Psychosis was able on the defensive side to read into those gaps and cause a lot of damage.
Well, the interview with Psychosis is ready right now. We'll ask him a few questions and I'll join you boys again in a second. Psychosis, big win for you guys. Congratulations. How does this feel getting that first win out of the way?
It's definitely what we were hoping for this weekend, because like we had a really rough start last weekend, but we learned a lot from like last week and a lot of like problems that our team has, and I think we sorted it out for the most part this week.
Now on Villa, you know, when you guys were on the defensive half, it was 3-3, you know, pretty back and forth, but you guys really seemed to get into your groove on attack on Villa. Was that how you guys felt? Because you guys just took off from that point.
I think it's just like we had like the momentum going, and like we kind of read into what they were going to do. They were going to play really aggro and go for a lot of early picks, and we just capitalized heavily on that.
And let's also talk about the additions to the team this year in Tra and Beastly. What have they done for the team, and how is it? It seems to now be fully gelled together and actually working.
Tra is just like a really good player, so we picked him up as like another like bragging point, and then that allowed like Gasher to go more to like a flex role since Bex joined, and Bex brings like a lot of like structure, strats, etc. and to the team, which helps us a lot.
Well, it was a great win for you guys, and best of luck on the rest of the stage. Hopefully you can rack up a few more.
Yeah.
Have a good one, dude.
You too.
So I feel like for CL, for everyone involved in CL, that is a weight off of all of our shoulders. We always want Aqualix to do well, and it's nice to see them get that first win. So we are halfway, or I guess now over halfway through the day. We've got 3 done. We got 2 more to go. The next one coming up after this quick break will be Game and Gladiators, and they will be taking on Luminosity.